what's at stake in the situation?
Yeah, like what's that? Why are you singing the song right now?
Because
We're in this class.
Obviously. You are in the song. Not only do you have to be the actor, but you have to also be the playwright, okay? So figure out your scenario, what's happening immediately before, what's happening immediately after, and if you're taking a song out of context, you have to write that around it. So what's happening that's motivating you to sing this exact moment?
We're faced with like a really big challenge. One way to sort of tackle it is to make it not feel like a big challenge.
Last time.
I could be perfect for you.
What's that? Something happened. What happens? What might be happening? You have to fill it in. The person's actually walking away, right? So you don't, as an actor, have the time to sing a whole chorus because that person's not giving you that time, right? So that means that you then have to use that, like, imitation.
Don't really give the stuff they say on CNN.
Do it again. Because as soon as one tactic works, then stop playing the song. Because you got it, it's done.
I could be perfect.
My mother's car, I lost my cousin in a mall. I killed a fish and a plant and a squirrel. I lost my mother's autographed Mickey Mantle ball and ran my bike into a 9-year-old girl, but she was okay.
I think that there are some places in the verse, especially that opening part, that can be a little bit less sung.
Yeah,
it's like more childish.
That's why I'm so afraid to raise.
It's always the most exciting thing for us as the audience is to see the wheels turning in a character's mind, right? To see them making decisions and to see them processing something.
Is it that we're singing is because we can't speak anymore? The reason that we say that is because the stakes have to be really, really high to motivate why the hell we just break out into song. There are so many people who hate like the form of musical theater, right? They're like, why are these people singing, right? So we need to do our job to make sure that the stakes are high enough that when they ask us that, we're like, because this matters! They're along the way.
Talking to you now, and I'm sort of like trying to think of what I'm going to say next, and I'm looking up. You can still see my eyes. Whereas when I go like this, you can't. And it's like sort of a silly, superficial thing, but it actually really helps a lot. It really helps.
If you focus on one individual and you're having that conversation and you just talk to her, you don't have to work as hard. The big secret, I think, is if you do the homework and you prepare and you know your scene and you know the specifics and you really do all that before, once you get on stage, you'll never be scared of acting. We only get scared when we don't actually know who we're talking to and we don't, you know what I mean? We don't actually know all the details. If you know all the details, all you have to do is just respond. You know when people say that acting is reacting and you're like, okay, that sounds nice, what the hell does that actually mean? What it means is if you do the homework and you really know all the specifics, all you have to do is just have the conversation and then you don't have to, you won't be scared, you know?
Yeah.
So really just talk to the one specific person.
You gotta run. You gotta run. You gotta run. I gotta run.
The way that I like to think about it is, you guys know the movie Black Swan? You know, like when it's like she like separates herself, like Black Swan, White Swan. Like there are different parts of ourselves, right? So there's the part of me in the morning who's like, should I put on the blue sweater? Oh, I don't know if I really like this blue sweater. Like, does it go with the jeans? No, you look good in those jeans, right? Like, you go back and forth and you debate yourself, right? So you have to think of like splitting yourself down the middle and what are the two sides of an argument that you have internally? You know?
In 2080 had a 7-figure salary and his massive homes in a picture gallery.
The other side says what?
That it's not like what I'm looking for, and I'm not in love with him, and I don't.
Right, I get that you're not in love with him, but you've never been in love with anybody, so like you're crazy, and like you need to take this because you're never gonna get a guy this good. What are you gonna say back?
Because even though he like has everything like that, technically like physically like the needs that I need, but the connection isn't there. And
I get it, but like you are crazy. You're never gonna fall in love. Like you know what I mean? Talk back to me.
I've gotta run. Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny you believe that it was pathetically naive?
Now, how bad is it? Where you going? Isn't it funny? Isn't it funny?
Yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
let it all out. You stupid girl, you have been trying to say this is no big deal. You are actually just stupid for believing that. Go nuts
Yeah.
on yourself, okay?
Feeling like, man, like what's going on? What are we gonna do? And so we decided to just write our own show. We had sort of written a couple of songs just sort of for fun, like during our free time in our freshman year. So we just decided to just write a show, write just a collection of songs that could be done.
Creating something, you know, out of nothing and making it our own thing, and that was a really cool moment.
Yeah.
Songwriting was like, well, if we know that we have to come in and do these things as actors, then we had to bring a song that we wrote into class. How would we make sure that it would be really, really easy for somebody to perform?
In terms of the process, every song is a little bit different for us. It's never like done the exact same way. Twice, I think it's always just a little bit different depending on the song. But so much of what we write is like in a theatrical vein in some way, whether it's for a show or whether it's from a moment in something on TV or a moment in a movie that needs to tell a story in some way or needs to capture a feeling or something a character is thinking.
What's funny is like the more that we've gone on to write songs, songwriting is basically like a 5-paragraph essay. It really is, because you think about it like, what's your thesis statement? Well, let's say that the thesis statement, it's the statement that you go back to, it's your chorus, it's your hook, right? And then every single thing that you do, all of your verses or your bridge or whatever, this is in terms of lyric content, but it's all about how they go back to whatever that hook phrase is.
And
a lot
they
of times,
support it. Sometimes maybe it goes against it and shows you the other side of it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But either way,
it's rotating around.
Right. It's all that's, you know, every song is different. Sometimes we'll be like, we know we want to eventually take it to this place, and so we'll build out from there. Some songs we say we want to just start this one way and then let's see where it goes.
We talk about underwriting lyrics, because the music is going to contain so much emotion that you don't want to compete with that by trying to overwrite something that also contains something so heavy in the lyric. You know what I mean? So like the music's going to do that work for you, so the lyric can be very, very simple. Something should be this way, and I think it should be this way. You know? The kind of tension and fight and back and forth, you know, doesn't mean that the song doesn't get written. It means that you have to debate your position and you need to win, you know? And we love to debate and we love to fight in a way. If you haven't gone through the exact same experience, you try to go through something that's like, well, how does that person feel in that circumstance? And I think human emotions tend to be similar, but the problems tend to change as you get older. So like, how does that problem make me feel? And then how could I talk about it? You know what I mean?
In those interactions and being kind and being, treating others well, because you never know when you'll walk into, you know, I'm sure a lot of the actors that we were friends with in college think that, like now they'll walk into an audition room and we'll be sitting behind the table auditioning them. And I'm sure they're thinking like, why did I like go into that guy's room at 4 a.m. and like whatever I did in college, working on a show or anything. It's like, I want the person who does this thing best to do it that way.
The advice I would give in that would be just like, be as knowledgeable as you can about as many different things that you could potentially do, so that when you are tasked with having to do it, but know as much as you can, because then when you have to go and sit down and write that style of song, it doesn't take 2 weeks because you already have it together.
At least here you know that your music staff and your theater staff, your choir staff and everything, like, you know, they really know what they're doing, so you can really lean on those people to advise you like what you should be doing, and you know, if it's something you should make a run at or not make a run at, and either way it's really cool.
But whatever you make a run at in this world, like even if it's not just a really like problem that, like you will find something that you love if you follow the world that you love. Like I guarantee you. And if people are like, oh well, only like this amount of actors work. Well, guess what? Like, first of all, you could be one of those actors, so don't think that you couldn't be. And two, you might not end up wanting to be once you get out there.
We do not want to be.
I don't want to be. No, but really, like, I don't want to be an actor. I have no interest in it, and it's not because I don't think I could be, because I think if I really pounded the pavement, maybe I could be, or maybe I wouldn't be, whatever. But like, he's like, definitely not. But you'll find something that you want to do.
I want to live for like a day or a couple days or a week, like in that world, and like just soak all of that in, and then go sit down and write something.
That it's a very conscious choice of ours to try to diversify the worlds, you know? And when you do that, if you're writing for characters in those worlds or writing from those worlds, then I think you have a little bit of an easier time, you know, because you're writing with different styles and different characters and different dialects and different different just ways that people as human beings speak and express themselves. If you go and see bad shows, like
it makes people be like, I hate
musicals, and we all know like that a lot of people just don't like the art form, right? But when they go see a good show, they're like, oh, well, maybe I was wrong, or like, oh, I didn't know that musicals could do this.
And then maybe they'll come to one of our shows,
right?
Yeah, or
like,
somebody else's show,
like Book of Mormon or something. I think that that's a really great show because it means like so many people who think they hate musicals, they go to that and they're like, oh wait, actually do. When a show is good and when things are of high quality, I think it just makes the world a better place. So we never let jealousy prevent you from doing something. Do the exact opposite.
For us, our process is like I write out the full piano part, fully notated, and like the arrangement is basically there. And then I'll hand it off to an orchestrator, and the orchestrator, and we'll maybe have a conversation about it, and say, here's what's happening in the song, and sort of here's what I'm hearing, here's what I'm thinking. And that person will then take it and orchestrate it for whatever ensemble is playing for the show. Generally, when the characters sing, there's something you kind of like about it. That's sort of like a sort of like, I think, like sort of intangible thing, and that is just sort of true. Like we just kind of like characters who sing, and it's sort of, that's just sort of the way it is, I think. Stuff is definitely masculine and muscular and stuff, but it's also fun and buoyant and like joyous in a way. And so I think that they're not just bad guys. You know, and I think that's a really important element of the show. We'll talk about that probably a little more as we have this discussion. But to more specifically address your question, I think we wanted to write stuff that was really fun. And you understood that these guys were mostly having a good time. They were not trying to ruin people's lives.
Era, right after the Kennedy assassination, when JFK was assassinated, a huge shift happened in American politics. It was sort of the end of this age of innocence. So, you know, musically, I think the Marines come out of this place of this age of innocence, and Rose sort of musically represents this idea of a new philosophy and a new sort of movement that's happening. Especially as the Vietnam War began to heat up, people then began to question American motives and why, who we were as a country, and whether or not we deserve to be doing what we were doing, and you know, these questions of what is our role, you know, globally.
I think we really appreciate the people who stay true to themselves as writers, but can jump into the world. And that's why we try to do a lot of different types of things, different varied types of settings that we have our shows in, so that we're not running the same style every single time.
There's emotions that can only be expressed by song. And I'm just wondering that as you were sitting here, like looking at this and looking at the script and working with it, at what point were you just like, oh, this has to be a song? Like, how do you decide that? Were there parts that are just there because you felt the song was needed, or were there moments you were like, this is only
It's both. I think some of the songs were like, this has got to be a song, and there were some moments where it was like, we're going to need to do something here. So it's a little bit of both. The first song we wrote for the show was pretty funny, and it was written before we had done really an outline. Maybe Peter had done just like a first pass of an outline or something like that, but we had not really written anything. No scenes or lines or anything had been written. But watching the movie, watching that clip, which is probably only maybe like 30 or 40 seconds, maybe a minute long in the movie, when she comes home from the date and she looks around her room at this like disaster, which just reminds her of how stupid she feels and naive she feels. And she goes to the window, I think, and she puts on her night dress, she gets in bed, she pulls the covers up around her, she puts on a record, she like lays there in bed and shakes her head, and it's just like, well, clearly there's 1,000 things going on in her head right now, and clearly that's a perfect moment for us to, for us to do what musicals do, which is get inside that character's head.
You know, on stage we can't have close-ups, and so the musical theater equivalent to a close-up in a movie is, okay, let's dive actually into that person's head and articulate what she might be thinking, and so then we can build that out to be a song.
You know, this is based on a true story. Dogfight is a real thing that happened.
The screenwriter was
a Marine.
Who witnessed Dogfight.
Yeah. So it's a real thing, and sort of the way that we looked at it as writers and authors, and something that I think was passed on to us from the filmmakers was like this. The dogfight, you have to look at it in a way almost as like what we as a country were asking these young men to do was like, get out of high school, sign your name, and go and basically turn off like an empathy switch, and get over there and
point the gun where you're told to point the gun and shoot who you're supposed to shoot. Thinking of these women as people, you're just thinking of them as objects, really. You know what I mean? And they're not considering, you know, in a way, people they had to ask the soldiers to basically not consider how this person feels. Here's your mission. You do the mission.
What Rose then represents is someone who challenges that idea. Someone who says, actually, I am a real human being. And you have to confront that. And you know, there is a human that exists in this thing you're trying to dehumanize, and it forces you to say, wow, I have to have empathy.
Because of that, because she has such strong convictions and morals, do you see her as naive or just unexperienced?
You know, I don't think Rose would ever say, I mean, she does kind of say it, but like, I don't think we'd look and say like, good, she needed that to happen to her, you know what I mean? But like, no, she didn't need that to happen to her, but she needed a little something to shake her up. The circumstance is bad, but the effect is good, ironically. And that's not to dampen the horrible nature of what happens to her, but it is ultimately like a metaphor for like finding the good. You know what I mean? So I think she is maybe a little naive, and this forces her to, I think, just mature a little bit. That once she goes back out on that date, it is not naive.
Right.
It is not, you know, stars in her eyes.
It's not
it
for
is
him.
not
It's
for
not
him. It's for her. And she is not. There is no wool being pulled over her eyes. She's not like, oh, he's so handsome. Like, there's no thing. So anything that happens romantically between them, it has to happen really slowly and on her terms. And it's because she's not being seduced. She's not being bamboozled. She is seeing good in a very damaged person.
Show like there's like a lot of Eddie in me and a lot of Rose in me. Like there's this insecure, like I don't know who I am, and there's also this like guy who like thinks that I have my shit together and I don't, and I make mistakes. You know what I mean? So like I still feel like part of growing up, you have both these characters exist in everybody, and people feel like they relate to them. So like we're thrilled that high school people relate to it, and you know, really glad, because it means that hopefully we did our job in a sense that we made something that feels honored.
Area that was like the real, like sort of like, I don't know, epicenter of this movement, this anti-war movement, and this feeling that the government was sending the country into a war that it should not have been in. And also, I think, like, you know, people, there were members of the armed forces who were abusing that power, certainly in certain ways. But it was also the first time that any of it was being documented. And so, of course, I mean, not the first time it was being documented,
but televised.
It was the first time it was televised. People suddenly saw, you know, Vietnamese children running around. You know, like it was suddenly like, oh my God, this is what it's like.
Serve their country and do what they had been told was the noble American, correct, good thing to do. But ultimately, you know, politically, it became much more hairy.
Well, I mean,
Honestly, Take Me Back is really more of a, in my mind, and I'll just say what I think, it's like, it's Eddie desperately wanting to find compassion. And the only sense of compassion that he's ever felt in his entire life, or the only person that's really had open arms to him that he has ever met in his life, is this girl that he met for one night that he had this connection to that he can't explain. But what she offered to him was love.
In their own consciousness in that moment, it's real to them. I don't think we would necessarily view it as like a true friendship, as Marcy jokes, so you got to be friends from standing in line. I mean, but that is like that bond between these guys who were all gonna have to go. You know, I think Bernstein talks about it a little bit too, or like the guys talk about it, having each other's back in the tattoo scene, like that's a thing that is different, I think, than most other things in life, where you're sort of like, we're gonna go, like they had, well, we've actually heard some Marines talk about it too, like you had to make friends, because like you knew that in a month's time, 6 months' time, whatever month's time, you were gonna be literally in a life or death situation.
until this time. What's the lyric then?
What do you say?
We'll be kings. We'll be kings. And now it is no one screw that. We are kings. Okay? Got all our strings. We are kings. Punch that.
Because I also think that there's certain phrases that you're like linking together and down the words and say, where if I were to say this is a monologue, would I break? Where would I put those commas? Where would I put those periods? Where would I take a breath? And then phrase it from the lyric as opposed to from the music.
Got a game so full of crap. Their eyes turn around. Don't expect nothing. That's how they're made. Cause the dogfight, in the ring.
Now try it without sustaining it and just really communicate it. I don't even want you to hold that out. Just say dogfight.
Okay.
Dogfight. Dogfight. Don't you get it? Okay.
Girls,
Push your back.
real
Can we all build it? I build to outside. Let me take. So build it. So right on. I think I saw you at church. Dudes. Think I saw you at church. 1, 2. 1, 2. I think I saw you at church. Baby, where you running?
Codes, new Twilight Zones, and Leslie Gore. Farewell to Chevrolets, to Willie Mays, the corner store. Hats off to you, red, white, and blue. So raise your cup and live it up. And live it up. And live it up. A wild ride on my last night stateside. The whole damn town is ours to borrow. Nothing standing in our way. The whole damn world might change tomorrow, so we go for broke today, making it count, taking that one shot we got. You just don't know where the night might go. Here's to JFK and the USA. Some kind of time, take what we own. With a wham bam, thank you ma'am, your boys are grown. Some kind of time, cut all the strings, we are kings for an evening. What do you say to some kind of